Alright guys, hey there, what's up? It is Autobot Mike 18 here with another one of my spoiler-filled reviews, spoiler-filled discussion videos, whatever you want to call this video. I've done these in the past. I'm doing all of the spoiler-filled reviews for all of my, all of the movies that are coming out this summer that are, the big summer movies, I already did spoiler-filled reviews for Amazing Spider-Man 2, X-Men Days of Future Past, and now, after having seen the movie again for a second time, I'm going to be doing a spoiler-filled review for Transformers Age of Extinction. That's right, guys, I watched Transformers Age of Extinction for a second time yesterday. I watched it yesterday with my brother and one of my best friends, and we saw it in real 3D. I got the 3D glasses right here. Don't ever throw them away. Don't ever put them in the bin when you're leaving the theater, okay? It's a scam. Just keep them. You paid for them, so keep them. Alright, anyway guys, I actually filmed this video late last night. However, for some crazy reason, it didn't record any sound. I literally uploaded the whole it was 36 minutes. I literally uploaded the whole video on YouTube about an hour ago, and I go to put annotations in the video, and I don't hear any sound. I'm like, what happened? And there was something, apparently it didn't record sound. Why? I have no idea. So I have to do this all over again, but don't be afraid. Sorry, the video is a little late, but like I said, I just made that giant mistake. I didn't even know I made it, so I had to film the whole thing over again, which is what I'm doing now. Anyway, guys, this is all-out spoilers, okay? So if you haven't seen the movie yet, obviously stay away. If you haven't seen the movie but you don't care, by all means, come and watch me, enjoy the video. But if you do care about spoilers, I wouldn't watch this because I'm going to spoil literally the whole entire movie. I'm going to not only talk about more of the plot and my favorite scenes in the movie, but I'm going to be talking about lots of other stuff. My thoughts on the whole movie as a whole. I will let you know whether or not I like the movie more after the second viewing. But as of right now, yeah, that's what I'm going to get into, all of that right now in this video. And leave me your thoughts on the movie down below. Anyway, guys, let's get to it, because like I said, the first time I filmed this without the freaking microphone, it ran 36 minutes, and it could run that long, if not longer. I hope not. Again, so let's get right to it, guys. Now, first off, in my regular movie review of Transformers Age of Extinction, after having seen the movie, I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. I mean, 8.5 out of 10. And one of my problems with the movie was that I said the movie was very messy, and I couldn't get all my thoughts together after I watched it that first time because it was just so much going on, and I just couldn't focus on the whole movie. My head was confused, it was jumbled, and that's what I said about Age of Extinction. Now, I must say, having watched it for a second time, I think I'm not going to say I enjoyed the movie more the second time. I'm going to say that I understood the movie more a second time. The first time, I think I watched the movie for just the experience, for being exposed to it for the first time, being exposed to most of these scenes. Now, after having seen the movie, when I watched it the second time, I said to myself, I know when this is going to happen, I know when this is going to happen. So I tried to pay attention a lot more to the story, and it paid off, because after having watched it that second time, it definitely paid off, because I understood a lot more things with the story that I said I was confused with, or things that messed up my head the first time watching it. It didn't so much the second time, and I was actually pleased with how that turned out. But anyway, guys, getting into the plot of Transformers Age of Extinction, with spoilers, of course. Basically, I'm just going to sum it up the way I summed it up in my movie review, but with more spoilers this time. As we all know, in this Transformers movie, the Autobots are being hunted down for unknown reasons by the government, and in particular, one government official is the head of this operation known as Cemetery Wind, and his name is Harold Atchinger. He is played by Kelsey Grammer. He's sort of this agent, government official type guy who has a bloodlust for hunting down Autobots for an important reason, actually. And the Autobots catch wind of the fact that they are being hunted down slowly by the humans, and Optimus sends out a signal or a call to the Autobots to go into hiding while this hunt is beginning for them. And the interesting thing, when I first saw the promos and the trailers and everything, the TV spots, I thought it was just the humans hunting down the Autobots, and I also knew that there was a Decepticon bounty hunter at play, and he was also hunting down the Autobots, and that Decepticon bounty hunter is Lockdown. But I thought it was coincidental that Lockdown was hunting down the Autobots, as were the humans. However, it's not, because it turns out Lockdown is actually working with the humans in this operation known as Cemetery Wind to find the Autobots, in particular Optimus. Lockdown is after Optimus for very important reasons that I will get into later on, but he is working with the humans. And Harold Atchinger is like the head evil antagonist human, and his lead agent, who is like the head of the unit Cemetery Wind, is Titus Welliver's character Savoy. So that's where you have with that. Now the Autobots, like I said, are out in hiding. They are going out into hiding, and Optimus, I guess, scans like one of those rusty truck modes to go into hiding, and he is discovered by Cade Yeager, played by Mark Wahlberg. Now, Cade is a struggling mechanic / inventor who is struggling to, support his family financially and send his daughter Tessa, played by Nicole Peltz, to college. In order to do so, he finds this old rusty truck, which is Optimus in disguise, brings it back home and hopes to strip it down for parts and sell these parts to make more money for himself and for his daughter so he can send her to college. And that is basically the main premise without spoilers. Now I'm going to get into spoiler territory. I did include some spoilers earlier, like the fact that Lockdown is working with the humans, but now I'm going to go full on spoilers. Now, the first time I saw the movie, I realized that Lockdown was working with Harold Atchinger and the humans of Cemetery Wind, the soldiers of Cemetery Wind. But I was just so blown away and amazed by the movie. I didn't specifically know why Lockdown was working with them. I didn't pick up on it, and I'll tell you guys why. It's very blatant in the movie that Harold Atchinger struck a deal with Lockdown that the humans will hunt down the Autobots, because they were not supposed to be hunting down the Autobots. They were only supposed to be hunting down Decepticons. They point out several times in the movie, some of the human characters point out, aren't the Autobots the good guys? Aren't they our friends? Why are we hunting them down? And we weren't supposed to, but when Harold Atchinger ran into Lockdown, Lockdown found him. They struck a deal in which they'll hunt down the Autobots, and Harold Atchinger will make sure they go after Optimus, because Lockdown wants Optimus. They will hunt down Optimus Prime and hand Optimus over to Lockdown, who wants him for a very specific reason. In return, Lockdown will give Harold Atchinger this technology known as the Seed, which has the power to cyber form any specific area of land. It could take a certain area of land and cyber form, turn into nothing but metal and everything, and you could make Transformers out of it or something like that. I was a little confused on that, but I completely missed the fact that the two of them struck a deal the first time I saw the movie. After having seen the movie for the second viewing, I got to pay attention a lot more to the story, and I'm like, oh, that's why the two of them that is why they're all involved with this. That is why Harold Atchinger has met Lockdown in that scene. They're working together, and they struck up that deal. Even though I think the deal should have been made more prevalent, it should have been made more obvious. They should have shown a flashback sequence of Lockdown finding Harold Atchinger. Okay, but they kind of breezed over that in a way. But that was what was really going on, and that is why they go after Optimus, and Cade and his family get involved in all of that. Meanwhile, there's another major plot point going on centering around the successful business person known as Joshua Joyce, played by Stanley Tucci. He is the head of a very wealthy corporation in Chicago. Their main facility is located in Chicago, and this company is known as KSI. I forget the actual name, but that's the anagram. And they are working with this rare element that they discovered after, looking over the Transformers and studying the Transformers. They discovered a rare element that is the lifeblood of the Transformers. They make up the Transformers, and they're calling this element Transformium. And they're harnessing the power of this element, and they're using it to create their own human-made Transformer soldiers. Joshua Joyce, Stanley Tucci, has the dreams of using this element transformium to create their own Transformer Autobot soldiers, so they can not only use them for like military purposes. Obviously we would use Transformers for military purposes, that's just a given, but we're going to use them for those purposes as well as, you know, exploring deep space or doing other things, exploring the depths of Earth or something like that, things that humans aren't able to do. And I really do like that plot point. I'm going to talk more about what plot points I liked and did not like, but I really liked the whole aspect with the Transformium that was going on. And here's how Stanley Tucci ties into the story. Yes, they're working on creating their own Transformers, this element known as Transformium, but here's how he ties into what's going on with Harold Atchinger and Lockdown. Joshua makes a deal with Atchinger, Kelsey Grammer, so he can obtain the seed to cyberform this desert, this random desert that, you know, no one's using. They're gonna unleash the seed. It'll blow up and cyberform this whole desert. They want to use the remnants of that explosion to create their own Transformer soldiers. They could have endless amounts of waves of soldiers, of Autobot soldiers, that they're going to create by human hands. And that is what Stanley Tucci's character wants to do, and that's why he struck up a deal with Harold Atchinger's character to get this seed from Lockdown so he can use it and make his soldiers. And I don't know how Harold Atchinger really plays in, how he's going to benefit from that. I think maybe he gets some money out of the deal. You know, he's going to hand over the seed to Joshua. Joshua's obviously going to pay him for everything that went on, and all they need to do is have Optimus handed over to Lockdown. That's why Lockdown is hunting after Optimus in the movie. So I thought all that was actually pretty smart. I thought the plot was decent for the matter. Now, KSI they've already been working on creating their own human-made Transformers, and their prized possession, or their prized masterpiece so far, is this Transformer that looks like Megatron, but his name is Galvatron. They tried to model him after Optimus's design, but things went wrong, and he ended up looking like Megatron's design, you know, in robot form. And in order to create Galvatron, the humans and the employees of KSI, they went back to the site of the Chicago battle, obviously, and they collected the remnants of the dead Transformers. They collected Sentinel Prime's head. There's a shot of Sentinel's head in this case. They collected Brains, who's working for them, and who they're forcing him to work for them. And they also collected Megatron's head. So they go into Megatron's head, take the data out of Megatron's head, all of his information, all of his data, and they store it into Galvatron's head. And that is how they create Galvatron. They're able to literally, using like controls, you know, transform Galvatron. They can fight, and they send Galvatron and another one of their human-made Transformers, Stinger, after the Autobots in a scene, which I'll get into. But here's the thing, which is what further deepens the plot with this seed. Okay, apparently, since Megatron's head data is in Galvatron's head, Galvatron is able to break out of human control and act on his own thoughts. You know, he has his own mind, and is possessed by the mind of Megatron. So, as we all know, Megatron, the Decepticon leader, as evil as he was, possesses Galvatron's mind to sort of get the humans of KSI to obtain the seed, where then Galvatron would then steal the seed, use it to blow up a city, okay, destroy a city in this explosion. When they detonate the seed, you know, it'll cyberform the whole city, and he'll use the remnants of that explosion to make his own Decepticon armies. And that is Galvatron's plan in this movie. Because the humans start to be aware of what's going on, and they realize that they're not fully in control of Galvatron, and how he's able to slip out of their control, and how he's doing bad things. He's killing humans because they send him after Cade and after the Autobots in one specific scene, and that is when Galvatron breaks free out of their control, is possessed by Megatron, goes after the Autobots, and ends up killing a few human civilians. And that's what's the main core of the plot. So it's basically, we have another bit of technology, Transformer technology in this movie. The first movie we had the Allspark, the second movie we had the Matrix of leadership, third movie we had the Pillars, this movie we have this seed which can cyberform anything. Meanwhile, simultaneously, the Autobots are in hiding from being hunted down. Cade, Tessa, and her boyfriend Shane, played by Jack Rayner, are going into hiding with them because they're being hunted down as well, because they were helping Optimus. They were hiding Optimus, I should say. and they have to find out why. Cade wants to get his normal life back, and the Autobots want to find out what's really going on with this whole thing with KSI, and when they, in the pretty awesome scene where they break into the facility and they leave, the humans of KSI send Galvatron and Stinger after them in a pretty cool highway sequence, and that is when Lockdown finally captures Optimus along with Tessa and brings him up to a ship. And that's all I'm going to get into with the plot. That is basically the whole story. Basically everything's going to culminate in one final in a final battle sequence at Hong Kong, where the humans and the good Autobots, along with the Dinobots, they're trying to protect the seed and get it out of Galvatron's hands, who has infected the whole database of all of the KSI Transformers. So he's now in control of all of them, and they are all going after the seed. So the humans and the Autobots have to protect the seed. And that's basically the whole entire premise of the movie. Now, guys, I'm going to get into my pros and cons of what I liked and did not like about the movie. I'll get into my cons later on, but I have to say, I think I appreciated the story a lot more with the second viewing as opposed to my first viewing. That's because I paid attention to it a lot more, as I said earlier, and I really am glad I watched it for a second time. If you saw the movie the first time and you were let down with it, you didn't like it, I say definitely go check it out a second time, because I think you'll enjoy it a lot more than you did the first time, especially in regards to paying attention to the story and knowing what's going on with the plot. But for some reason, the first time when I watched the movie, my brain just scrambled with what everything was going on. It was literally so much to take in. I couldn't handle it, and I guess I just got blown away by the action. I lost sense of what was going on with the story, and that's what it was just an overload on my brain. So that is why I didn't really care for the story too much the first time. I cared for it a lot more the second time around. Anyway, guys, getting into my pros with the film. Like I said earlier, I really think that the story is definitely, it's not the best story. Can you argue that it's sort of silly, and the overall plot is kind of, not childish, but, you know, it's like, I don't know the word. I'm not going to say dumb, because it's really not dumb. Okay, people say that it's silly, it's stupid, it's just a dumb movie. I necessarily don't agree with that. I don't. I guess I could see why people would say that, but I personally don't agree with that. However, I really do love certain aspects of the story this time around. I love the aspect of the humans trying to make their own Transformer soldiers after using this rare element known as Transformium. There's a scene where Stanley Tucci's holding the element Transformium, and he's changing it into beat pills by Dr. Dre. He changes it into a gun. I think that's really cool, and I think they went pretty far with that in the movie. I liked seeing that part of the movie, and honestly, I don't know if KSI is going to be shut down after the end of this movie. Quite possibly, because Galvatron took over, but I really hope we see more of stuff like that in the next movie, because I thought that was really cool. Another aspect of the story that I didn't even mention yet, the whole reason why Lockdown is after Optimus, it's because of these beings known as the Creators. Now, this part really impressed me, because I think they're taking the story in a deeper direction. They're going further and further into the Transformers universe, and I really can't wait to see where they're going to go with this whole thing with the Creators. Apparently the Creators are what created the Transformers. They were at Earth billions of years ago during the time of the dinosaurs, and they cyberformed the Earth with their own seeds, creating Transformer armies, creating Autobots, Decepticons, well, creating Transformers at the time. Then we have, of course, at the war, Autobots, Decepticons, but even though it contradicts what the first movie said, that the Allstar created all the Transformers, I still think it's cool how they're trying to, in this movie, Lockdown is trying to get Optimus to go with him, trying to capture him into his ship, where he's got all of his prison cells and everything, and he wants to travel into deep space to go to the Creators to bring Optimus to them. And at the end of the movie, when Optimus blasts off into deep space going after the Creators, I honestly can't wait to see where they're going to go with that. And that leads me to talk about the ending. But getting into this thing with the Creators, I think it opens the franchise to a lot of new possibilities. The door has opened, and they're exploring a lot more things in the Transformers universe. I think another name for the Creators in the Transformers universe are the Quintessence, or the Quintessons. I don't know how to say their name, but I was reading the comments of a TV spot, and it was the spot where Lockdown was like, "You think you were born? You were built." That was a terrible Lockdown impression. But a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, it's the Quintessons! They're in the movie!" And I guess they were apparently they're somewhat creators, so I think they're going down that route, and I really like that where they're going for Transformers 5. And then a lot of people are also going as far as to say they're developing the story further and further for Unicron in Transformers 6. So we just have to wait and see. But like I said, this whole ending was excellent. Optimus defeats Lockdown, kills him, all that is cool. He ends up having to leave Earth, leaves behind the rest of the Autobots, leaves behind Cade and the Dinobots. But as he flies off and he makes that badass Optimus speech that Optimus always makes at the end of all the Transformer movies, I really can't wait to see where they're going to go with that, because you don't know what Optimus is going to find out there. Yeah, maybe he's going after the creators, but he can find a whole bunch of other Transformers that are still out there somewhere in the depths of space. Maybe some of them haven't actually arrived on Earth yet. Maybe he's going to find dead Transformers somewhere. Maybe he's going to go to some planet and he's going to find Transformers there. I don't know, but this is really exciting, okay? I think we're going to see a lot more of the Transformers in space in the next movie, because the ending, I think, is open to many different speculation and interpretation of how you think the series is going to play out in the course of the next 3 movies. Because without a question, we're getting Transformers 5 and 6. 6, we're not sure yet as of right now, but 5 is a definite, so we just have to wait and see how things are going to play out, and I honestly can't wait, and the ending really left me excited for what's next in store for the next installment, okay? I think I always loved the ending of the first movie because it definitely showed you there was going to be a sequel. Revenge of the Fallen, I liked the ending because you knew the Decepticons weren't defeated because they were treated. Dark of the Moon had one of those endings, okay, we can end the series right here, that's it, we killed all the Decepticons, that's it, it's over. But now we have Age of Extinction, and that has that type of ending that I like, that tells you, listen, we're coming back for a sequel, and I think we're going to make it even bigger and better than we did the previous film. So I definitely can't wait to see where they're going to go with that. Now, getting into the fight sequences of the movie. Now, I broke down all of the fight sequences, and I think there's roughly 6 fight/chase scenes, sequences, okay? First one is the chase scene in Texas, the car chase scene where Savoy and his men show up to take down Cade and find Optimus. Optimus breaks free of the barn, fires at the Cemetery Wind operatives, and Cade and Tessa and Lucas are rescued by Shane. They go in that crazy car chase scene with the Sonic RS rally car. Meanwhile, Optimus is fleeing from Lockdown. So I really like that scene, and it resulted in Lucas's death, which I actually didn't. I thought he was going to be around for most of the movie. I did not think they were going to kill him off, so I was actually impressed with that. The next fight scene would definitely be the highway fight scene. I wouldn't really include the scene where they break into KSI. That's not really a fight sequence, but I would say the next fight scene is definitely the highway fight scene, because the Autobots have just escaped KSI. They are fleeing on this highway, and Stanley Tucci sends Stinger and Galvatron prototypes after them on the highway. And my favorite shot, well, one of my favorite shots of the whole movie, happens during the highway fight scene, which is one of my favorite fight scenes. But Optimus and Bumblebee have to transform midair and catch Cade, Tessa, and Shane. I really like whenever they have to do that in the Transformer movies. They're riding in one of the vehicles and they have to transform midair and catch them, and that scene shot in slow motion, I loved it. Optimus had a quick fight with Galvatron. Lockdown shoots Optimus, Galvatron flees, and Lockdown brings Optimus and Tessa up to the night ship. And the third next action sequence is actually arguably the longest one, and it's the whole scene where they have to escape Lockdown's ship. And the beginning of this scene was little boring, little slow. You know, it took time for the Autobots to find Optimus, because Bumblebee, Hound, Crosshairs, and Drip get on the night ship to search for Optimus. Meanwhile, Cade and Shane get on the night ship to look for Tessa. It takes a while for each side to find who they're looking for, but after they do, we have the whole sequence with Cade Shane and Tessa on the tight ropes, on the anchors, I should say, crossing over to get into safety. You have Lockdown's wolves coming after them. Bumblebee rescues them, saves the day, catches them, and then they get on that Decepticon drone ship with Crosshairs, and they're flying all throughout Chicago in a really great sequence, in my opinion. Crosshairs does that thing where he unleashes his parachutes and just starts firing like this, you know. Bumblebee does that thing where he shoots his anchor, or shoots like that rope and the hook into one of those ships, throws it up in the air and uses it as a shield from the pursuing Decepticon drone ships. And I really like that whole sequence. That was arguably my favorite. Meanwhile, they're all trying to rescue Optimus. Hound, Drift, and Crosshair. Hound and Drift are trying to rescue Optimus on the night ship. So I really like that whole sequence. The next scene is the beginning of the Hong Kong final battle, where the Autobots first arrive, and one of those Decepticon drones shoots down the ship, and Bumblebee and Hound fall off along with the rest of the humans, and they're defending the humans who are trying to protect the seed from the invading Decepticon armies. Meanwhile, simultaneously, Optimus, Drift, and Crosshairs crash in this like forest area, and they're realizing to unleash the Dinobots. So that was the fourth action sequence. The fifth action sequence is the entrance of the Dinobots. I break the Hong Kong fight down into 3 scenes. The beginning of the final battle, also that whole scene includes the scene where Mark Wahlberg fights off Titus Welliver's character Savoy, ends up pushing him out the window and killing him, and I really like that scene as well. I love the shots of both of them rolling around like on the building tops, like falling onto the air conditioners in Hong Kong. I thought that was awesome, you know, really impressed me. Now, the fifth scene, which is arguably one of the most important scenes in the whole Transformers series, is the scene where Optimus awakens the Dinobots. Optimus has to tame Grimlock. They transform the Dinobots. Optimus, Drift, and Crosshairs get on them. They ride into Hong Kong and start kicking Decepticon drone ass. And that whole scene was epic. Okay, the one word to describe that scene is without a doubt epic. And the reason why it's not my favorite scene is I just love the scene on Lockdown ship. They'd never really done something like that, so I like that. But the reason why that's the most important scene, one of the most important scenes in the whole series for me, guys, is because it's the introduction of the Dinobots, these legendary characters from the 80s cartoon. So that was a pretty important scene, if you ask me. So that is why I really enjoyed that sequence, and it's one of the best scenes of the movie. Also, the escaping Lockdown ship scene was arguably the best scene in 3D, and the Dinobot scene was pretty damn good in 3D. And of course, the final scene in the movie, final fight sequence, I should say, is where Lockdown arrives, having realized Optimus escaped the night ship, and he starts sucking up all things metal into the ship, you know, and throwing it back down after Optimus and the Dinobots. And he starts doing that, and then Optimus and Lockdown have that final fight with Cade involved, and Bumblebee even comes in, and then finally it culminates in Optimus ripping the sword out of him with the help of Tessa and Shane, takes the sword, slashes Lockdown right down the middle of his head, all the way down here, and I love that scene. It was a little let down, which I'll get into that later on, but those are all the fight sequences broken down. I really enjoyed all of them. I don't think the action can ever compete with what we got in Dark of the Moon, not by a long shot, but trust me, the action was pretty darn good in this movie. Like I said, my favorite scene is where they escaped Lockdown ship, and my next favorite scene has to be the entrance of the Dinobots. Another reason why I love the scene in the entrance of the Dinobots was because of the music that was playing. Now, I'm going to get into the score in a little while, and Battle Cry, but I love the music that was playing when they introduced the Dinobots. It takes the music that was from the first movie where they introduced the Autobots, when the Autobots first arrive on Earth, and it takes that music and they play it in that scene where they introduce the Dinobots. It was so epic. It was such a payoff, in my opinion, and that's why, in my opinion, it's one of the most important scenes in Age of Extinction and in the whole series, without a doubt. Now, real quick, I really want to get into the new Autobot team. Now, I talked about the Dinobots, and I said that the Dinobot scene was just purely epic. I loved seeing Grimlock, Scorn, Slug, and Strafe. I thought they were all awesome, and I still am going to stand by my opinion that they did not have enough screen time, without a doubt. They definitely needed more time on screen. However, I still enjoyed them in the movie. That scene, the one word to describe that scene is epic. Okay, that is, period. But getting into the new Autobot team of Hound, Drift, and Crosshairs. I like how, apart from the Dinobots, they only had 5 Autobots in the movie, like with the first Transformers. Even though I prefer more Autobots than less, I still liked the Autobots that were included in the movie. I loved Hound, voiced by John Goodman. Thought that was a really good voice choice. And not only was that a good voice choice, but Hound was just awesome. He goes out like a boss in one of the battle sequences. Even though he doesn't die, he runs out of ammo. He starts using his sword, his swords. He was just so awesome. He had a few funny, great lines, in my opinion. I really liked Hound. Drift, I liked how he was sort of like the samurai Autobot. He was all about peace and zen, and I thought that was pretty cool. Voiced by Ken Watanabe, and I definitely like Drift. Crosshairs is my least favorite of the new Autobots, even though I still liked him. I didn't like his personality a few times, and how he was like, oh, I don't care about this, I don't care about that. Other than that, I still overall enjoyed Crosshairs in the movie. He had a few great action scenes. I love the scene where Drift cuts through that one Decepticon, and I love how Hound went out in the blazes of glory, and Crosshairs had that awesome scene. I thought all of us had some pretty awesome scenes, and I loved them in the movie. Now, another thing I really enjoyed about the movie, especially the second time, was definitely Battle Cry. I heard it the first time when I saw the movie, but then hearing it the second time, I actually got to pay attention to when they played it and when Steve Jablonsky mixed the score with Battle Cry. And I think Battle Cry, and I still think this, it works good as an end credit song, and in my opinion, it is perfect in the movie. It fits very well. It mingles very well with the scenes, and I love how they mixed it with the score, like they did with New Divide in Revenge of the Fallen. They took the song New Divide and kind of mingled it with the score of Revenge of the Fallen, and they didn't really do that in Dark of the Moon with Iridescent, but they definitely did that with Battle Cry in Age of Extinction, and I really like how they did that. And the song in general, Battle Cry, was just really awesome. I really like the song. Not as good as Linkin Park, doesn't even hold a candle to Linkin Park, but I still really enjoyed the song, and I think it fit well in the movie. Mark Wahlberg, I'll get into the rest of the human cast. I thought Mark Wahlberg was an absolute boss in the movie, even though I still prefer Shia LaBeouf a little bit more, because I just grew up with Shia in the movies, and I never had problems with Shia LaBeouf. Mark Wahlberg was a boss, and I love how they gave him something to do, even though he had no place whatsoever in the Hong Kong battle. There was even a scene in the movie where him, Tessa, and Shane have the choice of staying behind in the outskirts of Chicago and getting arrested, or going with the Autobots to Hong Kong to save the day. If you ask me, I would have gone for the excitement, but I would have not gone to avoid living my life, because they probably would have died in real life. But you know what? Using that alien gun, I thought he was a boss. I love how he wanted to use it against Lockdown. I thought that was great. Most of the humans were likable and not that annoying. I still am not a huge fan of Jack Rayner, but he was alright. Kelsey Grammer was fine. Titus Welliver was fine. Stanley Tucci was awesome. Another one of my favorite human parts of the movie. Nicola Peltz was better than The Last Airbender without a doubt. Not perfect, but fine for this type of movie, in my opinion. But Stanley Tucci had most of the great lines. Also, forgot to mention Ratchet's scene was awesome. I know it's not a fight scene, but it is a really important scene in the movie, because it was hard to kind of watch Ratchet die. I mean, it's not like it was overly dramatic and overly heartbreaking. It was just a strong scene, mainly in my opinion because Ratchet has been with the Autobots since the beginning. He came down to Earth with Optimus, Ironhide, and Jazz, and now out of all the 5 original Autobots, the only 2 are left are Optimus and Bumblebee. Jazz, Ironhide, and Ratchet are all now dead, and that's why that scene was so important and strong in my opinion, and I really like that. Moving on, like I said, humans were okay in the movie. Getting to the humor real briefly, I'm not going to say it was all perfect. Not every scene made me laugh. A few scenes got chuckles out of me. A few scenes I actually did have few strong laughs in. But I loved the best, funniest part of the movie was definitely with Stanley Tucci and the old Chinese ladies. How do you say "get the fuck out of the way" in Chinese? That was so hilarious. I also loved most of Stanley Tucci's lines. There's a scene where they're running into that glass building, and he's like, "Hustle, hustle, hustle, hustle." I just love Stanley Tucci. Like, he's just so great. And Mark Wahlberg even had some funny lines in the movie. The whole shtick with this being the overprotective father, I liked that. I liked how he kept calling Jack Rayner Lucky Charms. The scene with Bumblebee and Stinger was pretty funny. I mean, and the scene where Bumblebee's like, what? When he sees Galvatron transform into all those cute things. Oh, I forgot to mention that. I loved how, I thought it was new and fresh how Galvatron and Stinger and all the human-made Transformers transform into those cube things instead of actually physically transforming, and they get transform from vehicle to cube to robot to cube to vehicle. I really liked that. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, the humor was pretty decent in the movie. Not great, but decent for this type of movie. Now, real quick, getting into the 3D, I still have to talk about my cons. Getting into the 3D, I'm going to say this much. The scenes with the humans, 3D wasn't that extraordinary. It looked like it wasn't even there. I took my glasses off and I'm like, oh, the screen's a little blurry, but it just doesn't look that great. But there were some excellent action sequences, mainly involving the Transformers in 3D. Probably my favorite one was when Lockdown jumps off the drone ship and starts firing at the Decepticons drone ships. That was the best looking shot in 3D. Also where Bumblebee jumps off the building and saves them. That looked great in 3D. Most of the stuff in the beginning looked good in 3D. The scenes with the Dinobots looked really good in 3D. But other than that, 3D was okay. Nothing too spectacular. Not as good as the 3D in Dark of the Moon, in my opinion. Quick, before I get into my cons, I forgot to mention this when I talked about the score. Like I said, I love how they mix Battle Cry with some songs in the movie, with the tracks in the movie. And this one sounds really good. It's called Tessa, and it's by Steve Jablonsky. I really like it. Listen to it. It's played in the beginning of the movie mostly, and I really like how it sounds. I think it really fits the movie. I do like that. I obviously can't sing, but what are you going to do? Anyway, guys, getting into my cons. I'm already 35 minutes in. This is crazy. Longer than the last video I did, which was a fail. But anyway, guys, as I said with the first time I reviewed the movie, I did have a few flaws with the movie. I also have a few extra flaws I want to briefly mention. But as a whole, guys, I feel the movie impressed me a little bit more in regards to story the second viewing. And even though I enjoyed the movie, I still have problems with it, and I'm not going to give it a perfect score or even an A, because I did have problems with it. I'm going to stick with my original score of 8.5 out of 10. I gave it that when I first saw the movie. I'm going to stick with it like that. Now, I'm not going to go see the movie any more times in the theater, I don't think. But when I watch it again on Blu-ray, my score and opinions might change. But as of right now, I'm sticking with that. Getting to the problems I had, like I said, with the first viewing, with my first movie review, my non-spoiler one, the movie criminally underused the Dinobots. Even though their scene was epic and one of the best scenes of the movie, only seeing Scorn, Slug, and Strafe get like one kill each in the movie, that was very upsetting. Even though Grimlock got a couple kills here and there, he breathed fire, he roared a few times, I loved all that, but I still would have loved to have seen them more in the movie. You can argue they were shoehorned in the movie. I would kind of agree with that, and I would definitely say they needed more screen time in the movie, without a doubt. While I found Jack Rayner to be more likable the second time around, I still feel overall he was the weakest part of the human characters. He was more important, I felt, the second viewing, but still weakest part. Also, two things I realized after having watched the movie the second time. I did not pick up on this the first time. Galvatron was very underused as well. It wasn't just the Dinobots. Galvatron was also very underused, and I'll tell you guys why. He had one fight with Optimus, then he fled that fight scene. Then, in the Hong Kong battle, he did not fight one Autobot, or even Optimus for that matter. Now, I'm glad he fled the end of the movie, so he'll be back, and we'll see more of him in the next movie, because he's still technically Megatron, after being infected by Megatron's data in his head. So he'll be back, he'll be the new Megatron for the movies, but I still wanted to see more of a fight scene with him and Optimus. The fight scene between them was good. You have no soul. That is why I have no fear. That was awesome, but I wanted to see more of that. Galvatron was very underused in the movie. And the Lockdown and Optimus fight scene could have been a little bit longer. It was good, but Lockdown, they threw a few jabs at each other, and then Optimus saved Cade by killing Kelsey Grammer. Then Lockdown just impales him, and then once they free Optimus, Optimus just cuts right through him, and then that just ended. That was a little upsetting as well. It wasn't as good as the Forest fight, no way. Nor was it as good as the end fight, Revenge of the Fallen. Nor was it as good as the Sentinel Prime Optimus Megatron fight in Dark of the Moon. It just could have been a little bit longer, in my opinion, even though the movie was as long as it was. And last but not least, as I said, guys, the writing still is a little bloated. It's definitely got a lot of weight to it. It's a little messy at times, but it is nowhere near as confusing or as messy as it was my first viewing. Still, did the writing need work? Did it need improvements along with the editing in the movie? Yes, it did. Could they have trimmed a scene or two out of the movie? Absolutely. However, I still feel that the writing overall as a whole was decent, yet it still had a few... It has a plot hole in the movie itself, and it has a few plot holes in the overall Transformers series. But that's really it, guys. I have to say this much. Even though my rating stood the same, like I said, I was a lot more impressed with the movie the second time in regards to the story than I was the first time. The story was a lot better, in my opinion, even though it could have been better, and it's not as good as the story of Dark of the Moon or the story of the first movie. I still overall enjoyed it. Holy crap, guys. I was sitting here talking for 40 minutes. My last one was 36 minutes. Now it's 40 minutes. These videos just keep getting longer and longer and longer. Anyway, guys, that's all I have to say. Is I hung? Oh, my tongue's still blue. That's embarrassing. I had a slushie before, a little bit before I did this, guys. I am sorry. My lips are blue and all that. Anyway, guys, that's it. After my second viewing, that was my spoiler film review. Thank you guys for watching so much. I'm so sorry for the length, but I had a lot to discuss. Leave me your thoughts if you've seen the whole movie down below in the comments. Do you like the movie? How many times did you see it? I definitely recommend you see it a second time to like it more. And yeah, let me know what you think of the movie, guys, down below. And spoilers. Get into spoilers without a doubt. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. Bye.